Welcome, Taryn. How are you doing this Sunday evening?
Hi, welcome all. I'm good.
It's nine
You
o'clock.
are muted.
Welcome all. Yeah, hi, I'm good. I
All
hope
right.
everyone is fine. I know the weather is crazy on your end.
The
It's
weather
been
is crazy.
it's
The
been a
weather is
very
crazy.
rough past 2 days for you guys. It's
Yes, it
very,
has
very rough.
been. Yes, we had a blizzard actually. So, for Caribbean people, as sideways flying snow, as I like to call it. So snow is just coming at you. It started like a hurricane, but with snow. So no fun, really, no fun at all. And then the highways are not necessarily cleared as quickly as we would like them. And, the places have issues, and we've had to deal with that. But now we're getting into a week that we're going to have a high of 50, I think, on Thursday. So that is exciting, very exciting, coming after Groundhog Day on Wednesday.
Right?
So looking forward to that. And it would be selfish of me not to ask you what your temperature is.
Pretty much the same. Nice and sunny. Oh, we had some rain today.
You had
and
rain.
and we had
Okay,
an
good.
earthquake 2 days ago.
Mm,
A 5.7,
okay.
I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
5.7, nothing major, but
Mm-hmm.
if I have to make
So a little bit of
comparisons,
shaking.
yeah, we had a little bit of shaking, we had a lot of sun, we had a lot of soca, and a little bit of rain.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah,
Sounds
very,
exciting.
very, very, very.
Yes.
I can't complain. It was nice. I saw a lot of videos
Mhm.
of you guys, people. But what I love about New Yorkers, though, the people in New York, the New York people, they made the best of a cool situation. I give them that. I saw people outside having fun, makeshift snowboards and people snowboarding
Oh
and
yeah.
all the fun stuff. Dangerous, a little dangerous, but still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I saw this
Yeah.
one news reporter was doing an interview and she's talking to that guy and asking him why you out, and he was just chilling, just cool, having a coffee. He said life is great. He said it's not too bad. He's from Brooklyn, and I guess the New Yorkers they dealt with it differently to the rest of to everybody else. I can honestly say that
And they
from the
had
video.
20 inches of snow out in Long Island. They had 20 inches. So, I looked at that and I'm like, yeah, let me not complain.
Yeah, so
So,
they dealt with it well. They dealt with it well.
yes, yes.
But we here.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So this evening we want to talk a little bit about relationship management because we started the year looking at self-awareness, and then we spoke about self-management, and now we want to talk about relationship management, which is really bringing it all together, because like I keep saying, you don't live on an island, you're not alone, and so you have to be able to interact with people. That's why you want to know how you come across, so you want to know how people see you. In terms of self-awareness, we also spoke about being able to expand your emotional vocabulary so that you understand how you tell people what you're feeling when you're feeling those things. So tonight, let's look a little bit at relationship management. And you know how we do, we're going to talk about how this plays out in the real world, what it actually looks like, and give you some good examples so that you can, know what are some of the things you might need to tweak and so on. So relationship management is important when you're dealing with interpersonal conflict and if you want to provide feedback. Most times when people start thinking of relationship management or when they want to talk to somebody, is when something is going wrong. When things are fine, nobody wants to talk about anything. But when there's an issue, everybody jumps up and they think, all right, we might need to fix this. So you want to be assertive, and in relationship management, you want to be able to influence others positively. What does that look like? So you have to be able to communicate assertively, meaning that you avoid aggressive and passive or passive aggressive behaviors. And I'll go into a lot of what passive aggression looks like, because you can tell if someone is being aggressive. You can also tell if someone is being passive. But passive aggressive is where you're like, was that supposed to offend me or was it not? Sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area, and you want to make sure that you understand. A skill like relationship management is important when you're giving and receiving negative feedback, because you want to be able to preserve or improve the relationship that you have. So whether that's at home or at work, if you have something negative to say, and especially if it's unsolicited, you might want to make sure that you say it in a way that you don't come across looking like a bully. You also want to manage conflict well. So how you resolve that conflict is important for the relationship. And then you influence people positively depending on how you understand the dynamics of the group that you're a part of. So let's look a little bit at passive aggressive behavior is. And you may need to ask a question so that you understand whether it's deliberate or not, because passive aggressive behavior is deliberate. People don't just act passive aggressive. They know, they set out to do it because they're looking to trigger you. Mm-hmm. So one thing is like being late or not showing up on time repeatedly. So whatever it is they should be doing for you is not a priority. So you can ask, well, listen, are you deliberately coming late, or is there an issue that we should know about? And you figure out what the problem is, because being late or procrastinating on something, that's definitely passive aggressive, and not necessarily procrastinating on your own thing. I mean, that's on you. But if you have something to do for someone, or if you're in a group setting at work, if you're in a relationship or whatever, and that's why sometimes women get upset when they ask men to take out the garbage, and they have to ask them again and again.
So is it passive aggressive when you...
The procrastination will get you in trouble.
The procrastination sometimes gets you in trouble, but I think also, and you know what's weird? I think that is a study that somebody should do. It's an international phenomenon. You think that it only happens in some sectors, it happens everywhere. Right. That taking out the trash situation is really, I am yet to find someone who has mastered the art of taking out the trash. Swear.
You mean like not have like so that you don't have to ask them repeatedly?
Yeah, I've never met anybody who's mastered the art who where it's like a customer, because listen to what happens. Here what I think happens with that. I just want to stop and pause for a second with the taking out the trash thing. Here why? Because what happens is, I think women are more active in the kitchen in some instances, right? And they have handle on when it needs to go out. As opposed to if a man is living alone, it's different. But when you're living with somebody and it's a cycle that happens, and you will hear, you need to take out the trash. Okay, yeah, cool. You have to take out the trash. But somehow, when you're asked a second time, it automatically becomes, you get defensive. I don't know what it is, but it's a man thing. I think every man gets, it's like, it starts to feel as though, because I know how to take it out. It's not, because taking it out is not a problem. It's not even hard, right? But something about the second acts makes you feel like, okay, why asking me a second time? So then defiance kicks in subconsciously. It's like, okay, you asked me a second time, I'm not going to get up and do it right now. And then it ends up in a conflict. Then the conflict starts because it's like, but I asked you twice to move it, and you're like, okay, I'm going to move it because it's not like it. That's one
the
chore.
Truck is outside.
Yeah, and you always wait until the truck is like almost coming.
Isn't taking out the trash a small thing?
It is. It is minute compared.
It's a small thing.
It's
nothing.
But it mushrooms.
It's nothing compared to the amount of other things that people go through. But for some strange reason, over years, for decades upon decades, men has not.
It's a great example.
Yeah, it's a perfect example, because men have not figured out just how to do that one simple job.
If you see that it has overflowed and it's into the living room, isn't it time to take it out?
But it's never that though.
It's not about the overflowing part, because we won't let it overflow.
Right.
It's just the taking it out and moving it outside is the issue.
So maybe it's the fact that the woman has to say it, or she feels that she has to say it.
Yeah, because I think if left alone, because I've experienced that already, if left alone without it being mentioned, because you know what's weird? If a man is home alone, let's say you happen to be home for 2 weeks, 3 weeks by yourself, it goes out because you have to take it out. But from the time you're asked to move it, something triggers you inside and makes you feel as though, why should I move it now? Why did you ask? I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's very weird. But that's a study I think needs to be done. It's something with the mind. And it's a man-woman thing. And it's always, because women normally will just pick it up and take it outside.
Yes.
Some of them, just to avoid having to ask, they will just move it. And it's not going to be there. And then it's the next issue because the man will let you, but you took out the garbage? Yes, I did. Why? I would have done it. And that's the next conflict.
When?
You understand? But I told you how to get it done. But I asked and he didn't, so I took it out for myself. And the next issue you have is when a man takes out the garbage now, we don't feel as the sense of urgency to replace the garbage bag. It's not a sense of urgency to replace the bag. So we'll take it out.
Yeah.
And then you'll ask, you didn't put back a bag. It's like, because something in our mind tells us we put back a bag when you're actually going to put garbage in it. As opposed to doing it one time. I swear there's something that somebody needs to really pay attention to. But that garbage thing is serious.
I think it might be easier here because there's set days. Well, there may be set days in the Caribbean too.
Oh, yeah.
But, because there's set days, you kind of know, like, well, listen,
it has
the
to
truck
go
comes Thursday morning.
Right.
So, either I get up early Thursday morning or I do it Wednesday night, whatever, So in your head, you have what that routine is anyway. So you kind of know. That was an easy reach in terms of finding an example with procrastinating. It may not necessarily be the best example because, it's something that has to get done. But let's say, for instance, somebody asks you to trim a hedge or to put a bolt back on something or change a light bulb, something like that, and it's not necessarily a light bulb in a bathroom that you use every day, but I noticed when I went over to this cabinet
storeroom.
The light was out, right. And so you're asked to change it and you're like, oh yeah, no problem, I'll get to it. And then you forget about it because obviously you didn't realize there was a sense of urgency or that it meant when you were asked,
it should have been done.
You should get up immediately.
Correct.
And get it done.
Correct.
So a week later, when she goes back to get whatever, she can't see because obviously you didn't change the light. So now that triggers some kind of anger in her head, like, gee, this was not important. I don't know, like maybe I should have written it down. And then she starts to get passive aggressive now. Or it might just be aggressive. You might miss the whole passive part of it. And so then you have to realize, okay, maybe I caused this, and then you have to deal with managing it from that perspective, just because you didn't do it immediately. So that could be seen as procrastination. Right. Because you might not have answered. You probably say, yeah, I'll do it. But there was never a when, and so I remember this meme that I saw that says, if you ask a man to do something and he says he will, no need to remind him every 6 months. So that's how long.
That's funny. But what I think happens with that is that no one will be dealing with things like this. Nobody like ever said, because what I think needs to happen in that instance is if you know that there is a storeroom that you need to use and you need the bulb change. What should happen? We're talking about if we applying emotional intelligence and relationship management into the nowadays play, how that conversation should go, which has never happened. This is things we have to unlearn as well. Women grew up hearing their mothers telling their fathers. Men grew up hearing their mothers saying their fathers, "Hey, go and do this to me," and he will be like, "Okay, I'll do it just now," as opposed to, "Hey, listen, next Tuesday I need to use this room. So I need to have this bulb go in before next Tuesday so that when I go to the room, I won't be in darkness." So what you're doing there is showing the sense of urgency that has to get done. You're asking me, you're not being aggressive, you're asking me in a very monotone, yeah, listen, this is what and you're articulating your situation as to why it is, what it is you want done and how you want it done, as opposed to when you come at it and it feels nonchalant as, hey, you need to change that bulb, we automatically take it that, okay, the bulb needs to change. I don't necessarily need to stop what I'm doing right now to go change the bulb. The bulb needs to change because it's not a room that either of us use on a regular basis, right? And then when you go on Tuesday and the bulb is not there, you automatically get upset. But just so I need to understand that I trigger the upsetness, the preventative measure could have been there as well. If you had articulated to me, like, listen, I needed it done before if you did all of that and then I still didn't change the bulb, you are within your right to be upset. I'm telling myself, you shouldn't know. If we are applying all our new age communication skills into play now, I think things like this, there's so many ways to avoid these type of conflict.
Of course.
If you address it properly from the beginning. But we have been taught to just treat things like that. Like things like garbage and toilet paper and all of these things, we grew up believing that it's not. And if you have a conversation as like some people have pet peeves, like me personally, I will say, do not squeeze the toothpaste from any center because I know it bothers me. So I will say, listen, could you not do that? Because every time I go to the bathroom and I see it, I feel a type of way. So when you say that early enough and often enough, you tend to get that back. You're not going to see it. So I'm saying we need to start to treat relationships, even though if it's fresh. And that's a mistake that a lot of us made over the years. You always leave the little things that we feel is non-important and don't mention it. And it turns into a cancer 5-6 years down the road. And then you're angry for things that you don't even know what you're angry for. Right. You're angry for the fact that I hate how you don't carry the garbage. I hate when I ask to move a bulb, you don't move it. I hate. And you start to chalk out all the things you hate. And the person next and like, so you don't like me then? So it's like, you've been holding all of this in for all these years.
Yeah, all these years. Those are deal breakers. But I worked with a girl, an Asian girl, Joyce, who wasn't married when we started working together, but got married. But one of the pet peeves that her husband had was the direction of the toilet paper.
Okay.
Oh yeah, if he found out that the toilet paper went in this direction,
was on there.
Oh, he'd lose his mind. It had to go this way. Yeah. And you know what? To this very day, and that was in 1978, 79. To this day, I still try to figure out, so what? What's the difference? You know what? But just as Taryn was saying, the toilet paper will run out. Men don't ever think about replacing it. They just go. Oh yeah, I forgot to. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm saying
it's not that important. It's not that important.
Certain things are never as important. I believe in relationship management as well, we need to try and have the little conversations earlier than normal, as opposed to leaving the little things to deal with later on. And now it's big things. And it's not that it's a big thing, it's just that the attitude behind it. And now we're going to, as we continue talking, we will start to talk about about feedback and how it should be handled.
Yes. So the next thing I have is silence. So silence is an example of passive aggressive behavior. So if you're talking to someone and then they don't say anything, like you are not communicating, you're left there talking to yourself, and you have to say, well, did you hear me? Did you hear me? Or the one that we do a lot now is you leave a message unread, or you read the message and not respond. So that constitutes silence. It's tech, but it constitutes silence as well.
But that one, I want to butt in again, sorry. That one is tricky because depending on the context and the type of messaging, because sometimes you could read a message from someone, a message that is very loaded, and you need to take some time to answer. Mm-hmm. Like you can get a message from someone that is loaded, meaning, and you know what I mean by loaded, where they offload on you, and you can be tempted to answer immediately, but you need
to take a pause.
Right, you need to take a pause. So we can't just say, we could use the tech. Yes, the tech is an example. If it goes for days, that's like a ghosting. I can see that. But if it goes for a couple minutes, half hour,
is passive aggressive.
Yeah, if it goes for half hour, I will give somebody grace, especially working people, and the time of day. If I message you in the peak hours of the day and you don't answer me immediately, I can't feel no way. You could be doing something. It might be next to your phone. I'll automatically put those things into play because I know it's not in your character. It's not in a habit of you to not answer.
Right.
So I will give you a grace. I will say, listen, you have to have been busy. And then we will talk about that afterwards. You understand? As opposed to someone listening in here now and taking what we're saying and say, yeah, I messaged so-and-so that didn't answer me one time. You can't really jump to the conclusion
not
immediately.
No.
You can't.
But if you are using a phone and you're seeing that someone's message was read, because the phone allows you to do that, so you can see the message was delivered and then it was read, and you don't get a response when you're expecting a response, or it's clearly something that you're having a conversation and you get silence, then that could be considered passive aggressive. So you have to understand the context in which it was done. So context is important for everything. Then excuses. If somebody makes excuses for everything, or for anything, it could be passive aggressive. They could find that something was not as important as you thought it was. They were supposed to do something and they didn't do it. Oh, I didn't feel well, or oh, I woke up late, or whatever, and you get a bunch of excuses. Then that too could be passive aggressive. And you have to be able to understand what is happening, so you can say, oh, this seems a little bit odd. We're always tempted to judge people by our own standards, and sometimes you need to pull back just a little bit and think, well, okay, if someone had asked me to do that, I might have done it yesterday. And sometimes I'm happy when people say things like that out loud to me. Like people say, well, listen, I know you asked me to do this and I wouldn't do it with the same speed that you would have done it. That sometimes puts me in check and makes me think, okay, because some of my friends tell me, when I asked for something, I wanted done like 3 days ago.
That's you. That's who you
But I
are.
didn't even realize that was a thing. Like that's how I come across. So they're like, no, you do everything with urgency. So okay, so you need to not necessarily judge people by the same standards that you have, and you could say that.
Also, I don't like people who project either. Like you project onto somebody things that you do, so you kind of you multiply it, like especially negative things. People do it for negative things. Like let's say you're a trashy person and you will do things a particular way. You try to make the person you're talking to feel like they are just as trashy, so you try to project and I've encountered that recently. It was very uncomfortable, where somebody was trying to explain something that, yeah, well, and I'm like, but that is not even me though. It's like, it's something like I wouldn't even think about doing that. And when I call them out on it, I say, yo, you're projecting. You actually talking about yourself. And
I'm thinking that that's me.
And yeah, you're trying to, and it's basically, it's like somebody who feels guilty about doing something wrong. So they're looking for like a escape from the guilt. So they try to sell you a story and tell you about somebody else too. And they're multiplying all these things and you're watching them like, but you know the person and you know yourself, you're like, yo, this not hard enough. Because I am from a world where 1 and 1 is 2. So you can't come and sell me this. And so that's something you have to be wary of too. And you're very correct with the whole, and I can only speak on you because we interact regularly. And it's not a bad thing on your part at all. It's just that that's who you are. You are somebody who trustworthy and very assertive in certain things. Like you might call you to do a simple favor, like, hey, when you get some time, you can just write this for me, and 10 minutes later the whole thing is complete and you're like, wait, I didn't really want it now. So when you ask somebody to do something, it's intimidation, not by force, not by fault. It's just because when you ask me to do something, I feel guilty immediately because I know my day don't run like that. So it's impossible for me to just give it back to you in 10 minutes. So I started to feel bad now, like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So I think that is what your friends talk about. You kind of put them under pressure because...
Well, I'm happy I know right now, so I can
pace it's not a bad thing at all. No, it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that's who you are. So people who around you will understand that and know how to deal with. And that's the next thing. And that's what we're talking about now with relationship management. Yeah, because... You have to know the people you're in a relationship with, in any type of friendship, on the workplace. You just have to know. You can't and always feel free. This is me. Like, I'm the world of ask a question. I think you should always ask. Don't assume. That is always put relationships at a bad place, when you just assume that whatever you want to think, without asking a question. Because if you ask a question, you might get a whole different reason as to why something happened. All right?
Yep. Another one is patronizing. So where someone is undermining your intelligence, like with pet names, like, oh, this kid, whatever, and that happens a lot in the workplace. It's very typical narcissistic behavior. People say things to you in a very condescending manner. And you're like, but wait, who are they talking to?
Mm-hmm.
When someone is being sarcastic, because sarcasm is often colored well, so you understand what it is. And so let's say you're in a relationship and you don't like the family and they ask you to go to dinner, and it's dinner by the family or whatever. You say, yeah, you know how much I love your family, and you know very well you don't want to go.
Yeah, that's not cool at all.
That is passive aggressive. Backhanded compliments, like someone say, oh, you look cute today, in a tone that don't I always look cute, or that kind of thing. Or someone says, and that it happens more often than we realize, where someone would say, oh, you speak well. And you're saying this to a grown person, you're not saying this to like a 10-year-old child. So, you speak well. You speak well because you're surprised at how the person looks that they speak well. What were they supposed to sound like?
That
is
happens to Black people a lot.
Yeah. And so, I often fill in the blanks, because when they say you speak well, I just think, okay, for a Black girl, or it's something like, I fill in the blanks because a lot is left unsaid.
It's one of the two. It's either
unnecessary,
a racist statement, or classist. Like, I get it all the time because of, as you just said, how you look. Because you carry yourself a particular way and you rule with with a particular type of people. They automatically assume by association. So it's you should not be well read, or you should, because your peers are not.
Standard English.
You should understand, you should know how to speak standard English, because clearly you hang with a pack of people who speak in slang. So you should not, and you should not know how to string up a good sentence. And if I tell you something that's, you shouldn't be able to understand a joke. Like, some people, and that's what, our next form of it too, is I'm just putting in this one, I'm slipping in because I'm just talking in real time. There's this type of people who try to have these I call it these high jokes. You have that sour humor, that real dry humor.
Yes.
Academics do it plenty. They love to do it. Like, people who into academia, and they rolling in a circle amongst themselves, and they have like an outsider, they tend to make jokes on them, but it's jokes that they definitely would not understand. You understand?
Yeah.
I think that is one of the reasons. That's one of the
deliberate and unnecessary.
Deliberate and unnecessary. Correct. Correct.
Yep. So once you understand how to enhance relationship management, then it helps you in different areas of your life. And so you'd find that people who manage relationships well are non-defensive. They're clear and respectful when they're describing concerns. They're open to negative feedback, and negative feedback is a big one for us, because you have to be able to understand how you're coming across to people, and you should be open to inviting negative feedback. You want to ask people, well, how did you feel about that? And then wait for their response and receive it in a way that is non-judgmental as well, right? People who are good with relationship management are also skilled in giving constructive feedback, because they're not doing it in a way to tear you down. They want to help you get to a better place. And so they do it in a way that it is useful to you and you don't leave feeling horrid about yourself. People who have good relationship management skills balance their view of others' strengths and weaknesses. So they're able to say immediately, oh, I think this person may be having a bad day, because they know them. And so they're able to do that and not judge them on a one-off sort of instance. They're also able to talk about it in a way that they can point out, I think this may be a weakness of yours, and here's what we do. It's useless if you're criticizing someone and you do not have a way to help them fix it. Like, you could be saying whatever it is to somebody, oh, well, I think you really need to work on whatever.
And you can't help them
leave it at that.
Yeah.
You should say, and here is how perhaps you can fix it.
We call them
are
the backseat drivers. The backseat drivers. It's like people in sport. Like you hear people criticize football teams all the time in Caribbean. Oh gosh, you can't play. You need to move in. Da, 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 da. But they cannot suggest who to replace them with.
Right.
What play to actually use. Because they can't
Right.
coach. They can't do nothing. They're just talking for talking sake. You understand? The backseat drivers. You know, those the people with no license and telling you how
Yeah.
to drive.
Yep. These people are also effective at approaching and managing and resolving conflict. So they don't like conflict to linger. If you're good with relationship management, you're like, no, I noticed something happened, let's fix it. You know, and we have a great example in the Caribbean. Now, it's not just in the Caribbean, it's on all social media with the female dancehall artists. I mean, it is hilarious now.
This is
But what I realized though is that we like conflict. We like it because it's just like the not just the likes but the views. Because this morning I watched something just to make sure I'm up to speed on it, because why not? And this one video had 33,000 views, and this happened 2 days ago.
Right.
People are very idle. This is a half an hour video. So I'm like, why 33,000 people felt it necessary to watch this whole thing? But we like that. We like that conflict. We are not out there trying to say, well, how can we get them to, work together? We want to see this side and that side, and then come back to the middle. And then this side, and then comment on everything. Not necessary. Not necessary. People who are good with relationship management are proactive in addressing interpersonal difficulties. So, listen, I don't like what you did, you get ahead of it, and you try to make sure that it doesn't fester and it doesn't turn into, a whole volcano when it really wasn't necessary. These same people are good at managing a team or group dynamics personally and at work, and they're motivational and inspirational leaders, so they work at making sure that the situation that they thrive in or situation that they have to live in is comfortable, and they're able to talk to people about it and provide guidance. And they're also skilled at creating positive and hopeful moods even during stressful situations. That is something that I think is important, and it's a skill that everybody can master. All you need to do is take the time to understand, one, yourself, and two, others, and then work at not being, last week when we spoke about self-management, it's not just flying off the handle when something happens, but that takes practice. Mm-hmm. And so if you're able to control yourself in a difficult situation, then when you get into a situation in a group, how you project is going to be how the people that are looking to you for direction, they're going to respond in exactly the same way. Yes, Scarlett, I see your hand up.
I think I mentioned to you that I started teaching adults.
Yes.
In LA Unified. And it always amazed me that the adults who were teachers, administrators, school assistant administrators, they were positions that were other than teaching. Mm-hmm. Although I did teach teachers, all adults. Some of these adults had no idea that they had created a very, very toxic work environment.
Right.
They had no idea whatsoever. I had women that would come to my workshop and cry mm-hmm. because of the way the other people, women most of the time, mm-hmm. were treating them. Just as you said, the condescending answers,
yep.
condescending conversation, the behavior where they're constantly picking mm-hmm. and doing just in such an overt way. They had no idea. They didn't really care. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They didn't really care.
The thing is, though, I mean, I think we've come to a situation where people have become bullies, or people are bullies, and they don't realize that you can be a bully as an adult. We sort of keep being a bully as a childhood thing, and when we speak about it, somebody feels naughty if you tell them you've been a bully, and we often associate being naughty with being a child. And sometimes you say to someone, you are being very naughty, and it brings them to that playground type of situation where they realize, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And sometimes you need to point it out. And you have to understand when you're pointing it out that you could get pushback. So you want to use language that's not going to be inflammatory, because you're already in a situation that if you throw some gas on it, this is going to blow up. Yeah. So you want to be able to manage it. And when Taryn and I first started talking about this, and when we did the book launch and we went out and spoke to people, people were so triggered by some of the things that we were saying, because they're like, well, can you come and talk to my family? Can you come and you're going to have to come talk to my boss. And it tells me that people don't have the, they may not have the bandwidth, but they also may just not want to rock the boat. They've learned to cope with it, but they are not necessarily managing it. And there's a difference there. Because you're coping with it, you're like, listen, I only work here for 8 hours, I get to go home. And so you right. suffer, and you bring on that stress that we spoke about, being able to, and stress manifests in so many ways. But because you are, not wanting to offend anybody because you really need this job and, whatever, you bottle these things up and you're doing yourself harm. And that could be one of the reasons that, people switch jobs so often, because, they're unable to express how they feel and understand that it could be a safe space. If you express something at work that someone else is doing to you, oh, well, one of us has got to go. Both of us can't be here. That's the sort of thing that happens, And so we won by expanding or developing our emotional vocabulary. You're able to say, listen, this is what happened and this is how it made me feel. So you personalize it. The person may or may not understand, because it may have been deliberate. So they're like, oh, I got under your skin. Great. That was my intention. And people go about the place with these intentions.
Yep.
They do.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
There are guys who would say, well, I had this co-worker once who was bragging that every place he went to, he was as a manager, he would make sure that he would get the girls to cry so that they would respect him. And I'm like,
I don't get you no respect.
That's not even a thing. That is not a thing.
Yeah.
And you're an adult. Why are you trying to make people cry? So people have twisted notions of what being in charge and having people look up to them, and most times it's a big stick mentality, and that is really not the way that you should go. Really not the way that you should go.
And some people, I think, and the way I've kind of interacted with some of these people, one, they don't care. They don't care because they never feel like they are the one. They turn it around and make themselves
There's never a sense
victim.
of personal accountability.
Yeah, no accountability.
That's important.
No accountability at all. They'll turn it around. Well, you made me. Well, think about me. Well, what about me?
Yes.
So it's been my experience that with some people, not all people, and those people who are truly narcissistic, they will turn it around and create more toxicity, unfortunately.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it starts getting to be a very, not only a toxic environment, whether it's a relationship at work or a relationship at home, it gets to be very, very toxic. And then, just as you said, it's a push and pull. You can push the hardest, you can pull the hardest.
Yes.
Which is so unhealthy. Yeah, it's a tug of war. Thank you.
You're welcome. So some of the things, I have some statements that you can ask yourself so that you understand where you fall when you think of how you're able to express, yourself and be able to understand how you work in situations with others. So if you do a self-assessment, you can ask yourself or say statements like, I generally avoid expressing my concerns if I know addressing an issue might upset someone. If that is what you do, then okay, maybe you need some training in relationship management.
You do, definitely do.
Yeah, if you and these are statements that would fall. This is from an emotional intelligence self-assessment test. And if you're asking yourself, those tests where it goes from, this may be one of those things where you say strongly agree and strongly disagree, that kind of thing. If you strongly agree with a statement like this, then there's an issue. If you generally avoid expressing concerns, if addressing an issue might upset someone, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So you need to work on that. The second one I have is I tend to communicate more intensely when I feel I'm not getting my message across. So more intensely could mean raising your voice, you start moving your hands.
And as my granny always says, speaking loud doesn't make you right. A lot of people live in a space of, if I shout or if I talk over you, I have power.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So my power is right because I'm shouting or I'm louder than you. Speaking, I love to say that speaking loudly doesn't make you right. And I just want to go back real quick with the first thing you said.
Sure.
Once you operate in a space where you do want to voice your concern, that is also an issue, and it's even more major on a personal relationship level.
Of course.
When you're living with someone in a marriage, in a relationship, that is something you have to voice your concerns. You can't live in a space with somebody and feel as though that's not healthy at all. So don't think for a second that you're doing somebody a favor. You're just damaging yourself. So anybody listening here right now to this podcast and you're in a situation where you have that feeling, don't try and find someone quickly or find a way quickly to address it, because that is a recipe for major disaster.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Another one is when I'm upset, I tend to show rather than say how I feel. That too is a recipe for disaster.
Plenty.
If you show how you feel, it could mean hitting someone, it could mean shutting down, it could mean going off in a corner to sulk. It could mean any of the things that do not involve articulating and using your words. One of the things that you must use your words. That's why we talk about developing an emotional vocabulary.
We had a whole shows on that. We had a whole episode about emotional, and that one is very important. Your emotional vocabulary is something that everybody needs to listen. Do not be ashamed. I've done it. I have done the whole take your list of words and write it down, put it on the fridge. So you try to go out every day and use different words to express how you feel, because not all the time you need to feel or go out with a negative vibe and always speak positivity into the air and speak positivity into yourself, and it changes the whole atmosphere of a room. Because if you have concerns about something, going back to that first one, why I'm going back to that, because I'm well, you will know it's about the situation. We do so much different things. Me personally, Mr. Dr. Like, I am in so much different forums on a daily basis. But in something else I was talking about, I heard about such a bad story and such a negative story, and it's about the same thing, the fact that, and women tend to not speak up if they're in a situation with a narcissist. And we know how those things go. It's a common story, and they need to have the strength, they need to be brave, and you need to speak up. And there's ways to do it without, or to protect yourself at the same time. I know a lot of women operate in a space of fear because they don't want to ruffle feathers.
Right,
and
exactly.
I've realized something since the pandemic, and because a lot of financial situations got how it got, a lot of people tend to right now kind of toe the line because they feel afraid, because they don't want to lose what they have.
Exactly.
They feel as though if they speak out of turn, the luxuries that they now have, they will lose. And when I say luxuries, the basics. Some people don't want to speak up because they don't want to lose the basics.
Having a shelter.
Yeah, basically shelter. You understand? So I'm saying, as hard as it might be, you have to find the strength to speak on your concerns. And at this point, you have to have faith and believe and trust that it will work itself out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And using different words will definitely get you.
Correct.
You'll be able to get there. The next one is I tend to immediately defend or justify myself when receiving negative or critical feedback. That is something you need to train yourself to do. And one way to train yourself to do it is to ask for it. So when you're asking, expect someone to say something negative and, feel it in the moment, but don't internalize it to the point where you feel attacked by it. You've just asked for this feedback. So process it. process it. And don't be defensive about it, or you posturing like, okay, well, I knew you were going to say that, and you're ready to fight. There's no need for that. It is going to be negative. Just,
take notes, and say it in action. That's how I look at it.
Right, exactly.
Take notes and you answer in action. If somebody says something negative, and it can be the simplest of things, you're working at a company and somebody say, hey, when you're doing your reports at the end of the week, it's messy. We can never understand what you're doing. Don't say because you feel your formula is the best way. I'm just using this as an example. And everybody is telling you, listen, your formula is trash. When you submit documents at the end of the week, we have to decipher this thing. It's like a puzzle. Could you please do something else? Don't get angry. Take that message and you try and just act on it. Try and bring it and present it the week after and ask, is this better?
Right.
Can you work with this?
And sometimes we need to be able to do that with words and not in writing. And I'll say that because I have a very good example. My nephew, he's 5. Well, he's 6 now. When he was 5 and he had some homework, his teacher wrote a note saying, what did she say? A little messy, Jonathan. You could do better. And so the next night he was doing his homework and his mom said, but Jonathan, you've been doing this homework. Bring your homework to me. Why are you taking so long with this? Then she saw the note and he took his time now to do this thing and draw these lines and whatever. And then he wrote a note back to the teacher saying, not messy, Miss whoever. So his mom says, no, you can't write a note. He said, but she wrote a note. So, you have to know. So I was there with her when she discovered why he was taking so long. She and I were on the phone. So I said, but Jonathan, perhaps you can talk to her about it. He said, Auntie, she didn't speak to me about it. She wrote it. And I'm like, oh, I was trying to save this lady because I know how Jonathan could go to her.
Well, this is
but
that's a generational
thing. She is trying to understand, or she's trying to let you know that you could do better, and this is what she expects. And he said, but she never said that. So he was doing his homework how he was doing it all along. And, she's like, a little messy, Jonathan. He's like, not messy, Miss whoever. So you have to be able to articulate, have a conversation about it, and don't just surprise somebody. Because he was surprised and he was very offended.
Right.
And imagine as a child, and children take things and they're very resilient. They're like sponges, but they're very resilient. So, tutus afterwards, they're usually bouncing off the walls with whatever. But he internalized that.
And in the wrong situation, in the wrong home, it could have been perceived as disrespectful.
Yes, of course.
A child doing that in the wrong home, a grandparent would be like, this child is rude. When if you're self-aware enough and you can, as what we're talking about now, relationship management, his mom could then express to him like, listen, I understand what it is you're trying to do. And now we use our emotional vocabulary to say, listen, this is not how you answer your teacher. Right. Here what's going to happen. You do the work neatly and you will then, or maybe the parent could butt in to say, listen, he just wanted to ask, is this better? Because you said the last submission was messy. He wants to know if this one is a little better. And she could then respond, Jonathan, good job. And it's resolved.
Exactly.
And that's resolute. That is how you resolve a situation.
Yes.
In the wrong house.
Right. The parent will go down by school.
Parent going by the school. Then the grandmother telling the parent, no, your child is disrespectful. You have no right to write back the teacher. And the whole thing gets messy.
Yes.
And that is how. So this is why these shows are so important. And what I wanted to say at the top was a generational thing. Because in our time, we would not even think about trying to even write the teacher. You would think, that's crazy.
This is licks next day.
You understand? So this generation operates differently. And because of that, that is why we have to use these tools that we have now to fix these situations. That is why I said, going back to when we started the conversation about the garbage bag, the garbage and the changing of the light bulb. History. We grew up seeing it done that way. I'm saying this for the younger generation. Young women could tell their boyfriends who they now started living with for the first 6 months, hey babe, could you please change the bulb? Because I need to use this room. I'm doing like a photo shoot because everybody's into some kind of something. She has a ring light in her room. I need a ring light in this room because I want to do this podcast. I'm shooting this video. I'm making these TikToks. And I need the room on Tuesday. Can you please have the room ready? And a young 25-year-old boy with living with a girl will make sure it's done. But in our time, when you say, hey, I need this bulb change, we ain't not going to change no bulb. You say I need a change. When you go back in darkness, call me. So this is somebody.
That sounds about right.
That's what it is. So we have to unlearn some of those old teachings, and this is how we deal with it now. And these lessons here, on everyday lessons here now, is what to kind of get you ready for this world that we're living in currently. And that's like the best thing ever. And I love Jonathan for even. And listen, kids will always surprise you.
Oh yes.
It's like I had an experience with it yesterday. Miliana went to a birthday party, and one of the girls at the birthday party said, well, Millie, we'll come by you and we'll play and this and that. And she was like, no, you all can't. And they were like, why? Because listen, you see how you all have here, you all are very messy. If you come by me, you're going to leave the place messy, and that will leave me to clean it, and my mother will ask me to clean, and I don't want to clean any mess, so I don't want no friends over.
Oh boy.
So she shut down a whole line because she believes, because at the party she was in, it got messy. And she looking at, and she saying, no, but if only bring this by me, that means I will have to, nah. She was like, no, it's okay. No parties, no lines by me. It's okay, fine. I will visit you guys. Don't come by my house because I'm not cleaning up after anybody. So she didn't want to clean. So she realized, I don't want to clean. So for me not cleaning, I don't care for friends. It's okay. So she decided she wants no friends because she don't want to clean. So again, so that's how they operate. It's a whole different generation.
And she was comfortable saying that.
Very comfortable. And and people are like, why would you say that? And in her mind, she did nothing wrong.
Exactly.
Because she said, I'm not lying. It's the truth. If they make mess, you will tell me I have to clean it up. So I'm trying to avoid. It's like my niece. I remember my niece telling my sister some years ago, they were going to the zoo. And she was like, Uncle, do you have any Panadol? I was like, why would you want Panadol going to the zoo? Because when I ask my mommy for something, she's going to say she can't get it and that'll give me a headache. So I want to prevent a headache. So could you give me Panadol?
Wow.
So I was like, what? She decided, listen, when I go there and I start asking for stuff like candy or whatever, mommy's going to say, no, you can't get it. You know you can't get it. And that is going to give me a headache. So I want to avoid this headache. So could you please give me a Panadol? I was like, what? This should not. So automatically you think about it as disrespectful, but they're not. The action is not disrespect at all.
It's not.
She is really preparing herself for
self-preservation.
Self-preservation. She understands that. Listen, she know the drill. You know, when you understand the assignment, you're going out with parents, especially West Indian parents. They have this thing where when we go to the store, don't ask anything.
You're not getting exactly.
That has been when you go into the store. Listen. Especially if your mother going to buy one item, you better know you cannot ask for nothing. She telling you, I'm going just to pick this up. Don't ask for anything.
Right.
So
I went to the museum last Monday with the children, and Jonathan kept asking he's like, well, can I go get a toy now? Mom said, Jonathan, I said we're getting a toy at the end of this thing. So he asked again. He's like, oh, I gotta wait until the end. I remember now. But he kept asking, and his mom's like, no, you get it at the end. And he did get it at the end. And that's the other thing. If you promise children something,
you have to fulfill.
You should.
You should.
So the other one I have is, I'm uncomfortable providing constructive or critical feedback to others. You can't manage a relationship if you are unable to provide feedback. That's important. I've generally found that others become upset when I give them negative feedback. Perhaps you need to work on your language and how you frame things, because, that would be why people would get upset. People would describe me as skilled at resolving conflict. That takes practice, because you have to be able to see both sides of an argument to be able to be skilled at it.
Yeah.
Dealing with conflict is something I find very stressful. And there are ways that you can manage stress. So that's a personal thing. You have to understand whether it's stressful for you or not. Or if you go in with your list of things that you need to accomplish, then it's not stress. The next one is, I feel I have a good ability to understand others' views and opinions, even when I disagree. That is important. We have to learn to be impartial. We can't personalize everything. I know how to create a positive mood when those around me are under high stress. That's one of the things I think that you do well, actually, Taryn. I think you do that very well. Um, Others would describe me as being respectfully direct when a situation calls for it. That needs to be, everybody needs to say, I agree to something like that. And so if that's not the case, then you have a little bit of work to do. I'm generally calm and confident in difficult situations. And that will get you very far because, and people like to, one of my friends likes to compare me to Obama because I don't get upset. It's not that I don't get upset. I don't throw things across the room. And, I understand how to deal with something and nothing. I haven't encountered a situation where the best response was to like slap somebody or throw something across the room or whatever. I'm good with my words.
Yeah.
And I can, express what it's not the situation.
When you tell people that, it takes, listen, I've dealt with people like that for a long time. People who can't use their words lean on, I don't want to say violence, but violence is the only word. Yeah. They lean on violence. And violence comes in all different packages, guys. People,
Absolutely.
when people hear the word violence, they're thinking killing and crime. There are a lot of violent things you could do that nobody dies, but it's a violent act.
Exactly.
And people do violent things that doesn't result in death, but it's violent. And words can be violent as well. And how you use your words, but people act in a violent way when they can't use their words. Like, you will see parents who don't really have a grasp on stuff. They will go into school and hear something about their child, something negative that their child have done.
Right.
And they will rag up the child in front of everybody right there in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, but you have to also look at yourself. It's a reflection of you. If your teacher calls you in because your child is doing something, as you say, naughty, or your child is a bully, you have to remember they would have gotten it from somewhere. So it mightn't be you directly, but you have to look at where do you leave the child, what the child is exposed to when you're not around. You have to you have to ask yourself all these questions before you deal with the child. You can't just jump at the child's throat and embarrass them in front of the school and scrape them up and make a whole big scene before asking yourself these questions. Because as much as we try to say, I hear people say, you can raise a child, but you can't raise their mind and all of that. Yeah, I get it. But I think children can be taught. Most of the times you have to teach them and they learn what they see. So if you are not supervising them properly, meaning you are leaving them to chance and not there all the time and looking over what they're doing, and then they do something and they surprise you, don't be surprised. That's your fault because you allowed it to happen. On your watch, you wasn't paying attention. So when you do pay attention, stuff happens. You think? So I think that you have to use your words when using your words, and we give you all the tools here. And it might sound, as I say, it would sound crazy. There's no shame in writing stuff down, and there's no shame in practicing, and practice the little things. Like, I guess tomorrow, try and write down to take out the garbage.
Stop. So let me leave you with some relationship management strategies that will help you at home, at work, at play, as I like to say.
Yeah.
So one, improve your listening and speaking skills, which, we talk about here all the time, and you want to listen actively. Emotionally intelligent written communication. So if you're writing to someone, make sure that, what you say is not pointed. So you have that. Express respect and appreciation. If someone does something well, let them know that they've done something well. It goes a long way. And then the last thing that you could do is take feedback. And that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. So guys, we've come to the end of another episode of Everyday Lessons Now, where we spoke about relationship management. And I hope that, you can give us some feedback. Let us know how things are going with you, how you are coping with situations that you find yourself in. And we'll be back next week with another episode.
Yes,
of Everyday Lessons Now.
Thank you guys so much.